GuyPerryman.com. Supersonic inspiration.
It is great to welcome on board James from Manic Street Preachers. Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm great, and it's just a real pleasure to meet you. First of all, I just have to say thanks for years of great music. But even better, it's not war, it's the end of love. What a great way to wrap up 2010, and for me it's just been heavy rotation on my my home playlist at the moment. What a soaring track, I love it.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I think when you get to your 10th album, you feel as if there's something significant. The number 10, to a band, 10th album, just, you feel a wee bit of pressure. And I think you do one of two things, you either reinvent yourself on your 10th record or you celebrate what you do best. And I think we took the latter route, I think we celebrate what we do best as a band, what we do naturally as a band. And it's undoubtedly, there is a massive classic rock influence on the new record, and especially that song itself, And I think we just wanted... after the album previously, Journal for Plague Lovers, which is a very disciplined experience, I think we wanted to be uplifted somewhat by this new record. We wanted more of a sense of freedom, and we want some escapism to be there.
There's always a sense... Well, I always get a sense in your lyrics that there's, of course, the dark side, but there's always this element of light at the end of the tunnel. There is that uplifting element in a lot of the lyrics.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like, I think, we had this thing when we first started writing songs with each other when we were 15 and 16, that we all suddenly realised that, some of our favourite songs were intensely melancholic. And I think melancholia has an ability to uplift you. I think, those melancholic moments in music, whether it be Echo and the Bunnymen, or whether it be Frank Sinatra, or whether it, be so many things. I think that melancholy can give you empathy. It can make you feel as if somebody else is going through something. And that's the main thing it gives you. Melancholia gives you empathy. It makes you think, right, I've taken the hit, but it can actually be beautiful to actually realise that I've just got to get through this and just move forward. And we all had that connection when we were young, basically.
I wonder if it's the poetic, the musical, and the beautiful side of Welsh people.
I don't know. I think Welsh people there's a saying, isn't it? It's, the Scottish is superior, the Irish are happy, and the Scottish is superior, the Irish are happy, and the Welsh are, well, they're just a bit different. And I don't really know what that means, but kind of there is a long tradition in Welsh culture of people kind of being destructive and a bit inward looking sometimes, whether it be Richard Burton or whether it be Rachel Roberts or Dylan Thomas, and some people would put Richey in that canon, but I think that kind of we are Welsh. There is a part of the Welsh psyche that gets drawn to kind of the internal rather than the exterior life, and we tend to dwell and brood on it. But sometimes after that period is finished, everything comes out like a big opera, because we're definitely over-emotional as well. You've only got to go to a rugby game in Wales to realise that it's a kitchen sink drama right there in front of you. So I think we go through that process of internalising things, and then suddenly there's an outward explosion, and suddenly it's like an opera.
I was eavesdropping on your previous interview, and you mentioned John Cale, of course.
Yeah.
On the latest album, Postcards from a Young Man. How and why John Cale?
It's really strange. When I was young, when I was just discovering lots of different music, when I was about 15, I was listening to White Light, White Heat by the Velvet Underground. And there was a song in there called The Gift, which is basically it's quite a monotonous musical track with somebody narrating a story through the middle of it. And I was listening to this story that was being narrated through the middle of the song called The Gift. And after listening to it 4 times, something clicked in my head, and I thought, wait a minute, I thought the Velvet Underground were from New York. But that guy sounds Welsh. And it was John Cale. Rather than Lou Reed singing, John Cale was narrating this track, telling the story. And I was like, Jesus Christ, one of the Velvet Underground are Welsh? I can't believe it. And kind of then I got into John Cale's, solo career, because, suddenly it was like a shining light. It was like, fuck, John Cale has communicated with the outer world. He escaped Wales, and he's communicated with the rest of the world in the coolest band of all time, and he's Welsh. And that gave hope to me. I was like, it can be done. you know, because I was 15. It were very different times back then. That was 1986 or something. So I got into John Cale's solo work because of the fact that he's Welsh and I was young and impressionable, but soon grew to love his solo stuff much more than the stuff he did with Velvet Underground. So down the years, I'd met John, I'd gone out my way to meet him, and I'd worked on some stuff with him, and I'd done some favours for him. So the time came where there was a track on the album called Auto Intoxication, which I knew that John's piano style would suit, and I bit the bullet, and with a lot of nerves, I phoned him up and asked him if he'd play piano on the track, and it was a pause, and then he went, "Yeah, okay then." So it was one of those nerve-wracking moments, you know.
Did you want him to speak on the album as well?
No, it's kind of because it's the chasm between the frequency of my voice and his voice would be too much to bear, because his has a real low timbre and a real resonance, and mine is kind of up there, kind of I sing like a girl. So kind of perhaps it would have been don't know if it would have been Natural Bedfellows vocally.
Words are spectacular things, and with Manic Street Preachers, the words, the lyrics, the song and album titles, you continue to astound me. I love the combinations and just what you do with words. Are they important to you?
They're intensely important for me, and I've only ever written a handful of lyrics in the Manics career. You know, obviously most of the words come from Nick and Richey, and for me, you know, at the start, I think that was a problem because, in my mind, when I became the singer of the band, I was thinking, well, usually the singer, you know, sings his own words, and that makes it more convincing when somebody sings the words that they have written. You become convinced straight away. But of course, I was singing Nick and Richey's words, so I made a decision right at the start of the band that for me to be able to sing the words more convincingly, I had to let the words guide the music. So I've barely ever written any music without the words coming first. I need to have the lyrics from Nick, and in the past Nick and Richey. I need to have them in front of me, and I need to let the words inspire the music. A lot of bands do it the other way around. They just jam and come up with songs, and they just hum tunes to it, and then they put words to the music they've already written. For me, it's always been the other way around. The words must inspire the music. They must give the music its direction. And that was because, like I said, I thought I was bringing up some kind of shortfall because I was singing somebody else's words effectively.
Interesting. As an artist, where are you particularly happiest when you are writing words, when you're in that moment, or when you're on stage, or is there a favourite spot?
I think kind of like when a gig clicks, it's pretty irreplaceable as an experience, because when you're joining up the intellectual with the physical, I think it can be something beautiful about it. You know, I watched my dad, have an idea when I was young, and then he would just start working with wood, and he'd turn the idea in his head into something physical. And for me, it's the same thing, really. You know, when you realise that the idea for a song was something you talked about amongst each other, and then one day you're playing the song in front of 10,000 people in Britain, it's a good experience seeing, having that, the cerebral go to the kinetic, so to speak. So that's an irreplaceable experience. But I think that still the most rewarding part of being in a band is still the time you spend in the studio with each other at the start, and when you're communicating with each other, and when you're being open and honest, and sometimes you're being destructive with each other, sometimes you're being encouraging with each other, and that's, if the chemistry is right in a band, then being in the studio is the best part of it, because it's so intimate with each other. You're honest with each other in the studio, and you're comfortable with each other. And sometimes you hate each other, and sometimes you love each other. But that intimacy is really, really, really rewarding. It is.
I'd imagine as well, when we all have great friendships, but when you have great mates and you're creating something as well at the same time, that must be just the most amazing feeling. Like you said, in the studio, when you hit that moment, you're like, yeah, we got it.
Yeah, and also it's undoubtedly, I can't overstate how lucky we've been. I've known Nick since I was 4 years old. I've known Sean since I was born, because we're cousins. I knew Richey from since I was about 10 years old. And to actually end up doing a job that you love, and you do your job with your best friends every day, and you have so much shared knowledge and experience. Yeah, that's very, very lucky. Because most bands find each other through adverts, or they find each other in their teenage years, you know, and just, you know, by the time they've done their third album, they realise they don't like each other. Whereas, you know, we all liked each other before we became musicians because we knew each other. You know, we all played in the same rugby teams, football teams. You know, kind of like went to the same school discos, got turned down by the same girls. You know, and all, like, we all had so much shared experience that we discovered that we liked each other before we became a band.
Wow, great. Richey's obviously such a part of the band still.
He is, yeah. I mean, kind of, there was a part, you know, obviously, post, you know, Richey going missing and stuff, we had to make a decision to see if we could still be the same band, but in a different way, I think. So there was a certain survival instinct at the start, and I think we insulated ourselves against dwelling on the downside of what happened. Right. So kind of, I think that subconsciously, you know, you create a bit of distance first of all, just to survive. As the years have passed, then it's easy just to remember the great parts of being in a band with Richey. You don't focus on, you know, the split, the moment where you went missing. You tend not to focus on that. You remember really good experiences you had in the band. You know, almost sometimes, you know, slightly tragic moments, sometimes really comic moments, and sometimes just absolute just moments of pure like friendship and bliss. So you focus on those things, and it becomes easier, and then you realise that quintessentially, large parts of being the band still feels like four people. But the reality is that, you know, sometimes you got to switch those emotions off, really.
Finally, then, we all deal with loss. You've had to deal with, you know, different kind of loss that a lot of us probably haven't experienced. Is music a place where you go and immerse yourself and makes you survive life?
Yeah, I think it's a good way of putting it. I think you know, in the studio, when suddenly you've talked about the record you want to make, and then you start making the record, and then you start thinking, wow, we're going to get there. And those moments are really, really happy and blissful, but they're always intensely brief, because I think that our ambition always turns into fear. Like, you know, whenever we think that we've matched the ambition in our heads at the end of a record, then we get the fear of perhaps people rejecting it. So, like, yeah, you get intense moments of bliss and satisfaction in the studio, but when you're just about to finish a record, then that ambition turns to fear.
Well, I am going to go and immerse myself in a Manic song right now. James, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks a million.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Gotcha.